There we go. Okay, welcome. It is August 24th, 2021, and this is Coffee with C.A.R.P programming. Today's topic is public libraries, resources that will blow your mind. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Doreen Sitter, and together with Kathleen Spath, we will be your hosts today. A reminder to all attendees that we do record these sessions to be posted on Facebook and YouTube at a later date. So if you wish, please turn off your video, but you'll still be able to participate in the discussion. Everyone is automatically placed on mute, or feel free to unmute and raise your virtual hand or place a question in the comment section in the chat box when you want to join in the conversation. Albert Einstein once said, "The only thing that you absolutely have to know is location of the library." Libraries are such a key asset to any community, and this past year or so has been challenging due to the restrictions on physically accessing the library. Virtual services have allowed us to take advantage of the many services that are provided by our libraries in Saskatchewan. Today, we are so pleased to have Tanya. Now, help me with this, Tanya. Rogoshwski?
No, Rogoshevsky, but not bad.
Well, I got 75%.
That's right.
As our guest today. Tanya is a community and engagement programmer for Regina Public Library, and she'll be showing us what some of these virtual opportunities are. Although Tanya is situated in Regina, many similar programs are available through your local or regional library. So welcome, Tanya.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. So as Doreen mentioned, I'm a librarian. I have been a librarian now for close to 16 years, I think. I did my master's degree in librarianship at the University of Alberta and worked in academic libraries for quite a while before making the switch to public libraries. And I adore the public library, and I think that the public library offers such an incredible range of services. And the public library is also one of the most cooperative organizations in the world, particularly in Saskatchewan, where, as you know, we share resources across the entire province. And that includes digital resources, which really helps make the amount of digital resources that you have access to so much greater. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take us through a quick tour of some of the province-wide resources that are available. So these are available, these are purchased through the provincial library system, and they are available to every resident in Saskatchewan, regardless of location. There are also a lot of really incredible resources that are purchased individually by different library systems. And I'm going to highlight some of those just so that you have a sense of the diversity of library services that are available. And I'm going to take some time at the very end for questions. We're going to do some live searching because I always think it's the most helpful to actually see the way something works and not just hear me talk about it. So we are going to get started right away. I'm just going to share my screen with you. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about digital resources. So these are all the resources that you can access in your home using your computer, your mobile device, your phone, your iPad, whatever it is that you use to access your devices. And all you need is your internet connection and your library card. So we have, like I said, an enormous collection. So this is things like ebooks and audiobooks, which many people know exists in digital formats, newspapers, magazines, streaming services for movies, for TV shows. We also have an enormous amount of a collection for learning new skills. And I think that's something that people don't always realize about the library. And certainly in this last year, when many people have been stuck at home and are looking for things to engage their minds, learn new skills, the library has incredible resources to help you do that. So the first one I want to talk about is Overdrive. And you'll hear me say both Overdrive and Libby. And the reason for that is that Overdrive is the company And it has an app, and the app is called Libby. And it's important to know that because the Libby app is what you're going to look for if you are looking at your phone. And it's that little cute little girl holding the book. That's the app. And so when you look for it on your mobile device, and you're looking to download the app, you would look for Libby by Overdrive. Okay. And this, as I mentioned, is a province-wide resource. So this is supported by every library in the province. And because of that, it is an incredibly robust collection. It also includes, besides ebooks and e-audiobooks, it actually has an enormous collection of magazines. And that's something a lot of people don't realize because it is quite a new addition to Overdrive. They recently purchased another database company, and so all of these magazines suddenly came in. The other thing that's great is if you are studying a language and you want to practice reading in that language, there's a really great collection of materials in other languages, both ebooks and audiobooks. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to stop sharing that one, and we're going to go to Libby or to Overdrive, and we're going to actually practice what you would do. And I'm going to show you some of the great things that how to use this to really get the full range. So right now, you'll see at the top of my screen, there's a couple of ways to use Overdrive. And Overdrive is making it easy for you. They're doing things like, hey, this is a great way to browse if you're not sure what to read next. Of course, you can also search for an exact book if there's a book you want to read. So I'm going to start by showing you just how to browse the collection. Doreen, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see Library to Go on your screen? Excellent. Okay. Okay, so what you'll see is when you're looking for something, if you go to, say, subjects, they've organized everything in terms of the major subjects that people like to see. And they've done that for both fiction and they've done that for nonfiction. Okay, and you can see how many items they have on those different topics. So if we go to something like self-improvement, and we can see that there are 2,769 books. Now, in this corner here, it's telling us what are we browsing right now? We're browsing nonfiction and we're browsing self-improvement. And you'll see when we look at this, there is a mix of both audiobooks and ebooks. But we can refine that, okay? So we could say, well, first of all, I only want ebooks. So now you'll see every book that I'm looking at is an ebook. Now, maybe you just want something to read right now. You know, you're going on a trip, you need it right now. You're not interested in putting it on hold. Okay, no problem. If you want, and you'll see often the very first ones here, they're all place a hold because of course there are still 1,941 books, but it does mean that the first ones that come up are often the most popular ones or the ones that are most likely to be taken out. So I can say instead, I want available right now. And now you'll see that in my list of filters that are being used, I'm looking at nonfiction on the topic of self-improvement, that is an Overdrive read, which is another word for an ebook, and that are available now. And so now I've got all of the books that are in the library that I can borrow right away. Now, when I go and look at them, I can find out more information about them. I can read a sample of the book. It's going to give me a little blurb about what the book is about. And it's also going to give me some other suggestions based on the same sort of thing. So, you know, these are about music, as that one was about music. And they are nonfiction, as that one was nonfiction. So that's a great way to also find other things that you're interested in. When you borrow it, now I'm already signed in to the library system. And I just want to mention that to people. I signed in just to make life a little quicker for us. When you are at home and you go in the first time, you're going to need to sign in. Where I see my account, you will see a sign in. And you will choose your public library system. There's a drop down. So whether you belong to Wapiti Regional Library System, whether you belong to Regina Public Library, whether you belong to Saskatoon Public Library, you're going to see all of them in. And then once you pick your library, you are logging in with your library card and your PIN number, just like you would always use at your library. So when I borrow,
yeah, just a quick question. How do you get, if you don't have a PIN number and a library card, how do you get that?
Okay, so if you don't have a library card, you would need to sign up for a library card with your local public library. Most libraries require that you show them some proof of residency in that community. And that can be anything from your driver's license to a utility bill. Most libraries also have, for people that are moving around quite a bit that might not have that, will have what's called a digital card. And a digital card will give you access to the library.
Libraries.
Yeah. So, and then your library card will come with a library card number on it. And your PIN number will be usually set by the library, or they'll help you set your own PIN number when you first sign up. You are allowed to borrow 10 items at a time, and you're allowed to have as many items on hold pretty much as you want. When you borrow something, you get a book for 21 days, and it is automatically returned to the public library when you are done. So no late fees, no having to worry about whether you have to do anything. It is automatically returned. As soon as you've taken it out, you can either download it if you want to do it, or you can read it immediately in your browser. So if I click immediately in my browser, I'm going to go straight in. It's going to take a minute to load, but I'm going to see that book coming up, and then I can start reading through the book. And you'd click through it. I'm just using my mouse to click through it and to read there. Okay. So come back over here. Okay, so that's kind of if you were going to do the subject and you were searching for something. You'll see this next section.
Just a second, Tanya. I have one question.
Sure.
From Nancy saying, how do we get the library to go site? Is that a separate application, or we just get it through the library website?
So you'd go through your library website to get to it. And generally, if you're looking at most library websites, you're looking for something like digital resources, e-resources. Every library kind of website is organized a little bit different in the province. If you are at Regina Public Library's website, so this is Regina Public's libraries, if you go to Explore, you'll see over here we have our popular digital services. We have a lot, so we've just kind of linked to our top ones. And then you could click see all to see everyone. But you'll see Overdrive Libby is our very top one. But when I looked at for example, Yorkton Public Library, I think they called it their e-resource list. And so you'd click on their e-resources list to get to Overdrive.
Okay, all right.
Excellent. Okay. When you are going to collections is basically, they've kind of given you some ideas of what you might like, right? They're trying to give you some easy browsing options. So if we choose mystery and murder as an option, one thing you'll notice is it's still got some of my results from last time in terms of the available now. Maybe now I don't care about that. So I don't need to have available now if I don't want to. I should be able to exit out. Oh, it's going to do that because I'm in collections. Sorry about that. If you're in collections, they're thinking you want to see stuff right now. And all of these collections are just topics and they change all the time. So right now you'll see we have a collection called Spacemen and Aliens. that might not be there the next time because they're just kind of looking for fun things that you might want to browse. They do always have the just added, most popular, available now. Those are always there for all the different ones. But then they always have like different fun ideas. So gardening, very popular over the summer. And so you'll see there's a whole section of gardening books. If you were looking for something that was, say, like a biography and memoirs, you can add more information. So if I look down here and I think, okay, so it's biography and memoirs, but I'm actually really interested in funny biographies and memoirs. So when I clicked humor as an extra subject area from this list of subjects, now I'm getting biographies and memoirs that they've also ranked as funny. Okay. I also wanted to show you, and I'm gonna show you the magazines in just a second, but I wanted to show you the search functionality. So when you click search, it's a little spyglass and there's a search button. So now you can search for a particular thing. So let's say I searched for Jane Austen. And you'll see right now that I've got 172 results because I have books both about Jane Austen by other authors, and then I have books that are actually written by Jane Austen as we go through, like Emma and Pride and Prejudice. Okay. So I could, if I only wanted to see books about Jane Austen, but I don't actually want to see anything that Jane Austen wrote herself or vice versa, when I go to the search bar, you'll see this little advanced button. And if I click on the advanced button, I can say that I want Jane Austen as the author. And now I can search. And so now I'm getting the books that actually Jane Austen wrote rather than the books that are about her. I'm even getting her unfinished novel that was recently finished. If anyone's been paying attention to that, she had her unfinished book, Sandition, was completed by another author, but most of it was written by her. So it's still listed as her book. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you here is, in terms of sort of the collections, is the magazine collection. Because the magazine collection is really new, and I think it's a tremendous collection. Okay, so these are all your regular kind of magazines that you would have got in print, but they are now digital versions that you can flip through. They don't count to your overall limit. So remember I said that you could take out, if you're a Regina Public Library user, you can take out 10, and I believe that's the same across the province.
We'll have to take it out later, unless you can take them out.
But you can go through any of these ones. So the first thing I think that's kind of fun is just to sort of see the different types of subject areas for your magazines. So for example, one of my guilty pleasures in life is celebrity gossip magazines. So if I wanted to read Us Weekly, if I click on that, one of the great things is I can see the most recent one. So this is from August 30th. If I've been on holidays, like many of us have been, and I've missed some of my other previous issues, they always have a couple of back issues. How many back issues sometimes just depends on how often that magazine is published. So Us Weekly is a very often published magazine. So there's quite a few back issues that you can scroll down. And so you could pick any of the back issues to borrow. So when I click borrow on that one, I also get it for 21 days. And just go to the browser so you can actually see what that looks like. So it's big, it's full color. You can flip through it. You're going to see exactly the same magazine layout as you would if you were looking through it. So you do get all the ads. But one of the fun things is if there was a story that you were really interested in, so if you had picked up that magazine because you really wanted to know about Kelly Clarkson, when you get to that table of contents, you'll see when I move my mouse over the table of contents, different sections are turning gray. And if I click on that, it's going to take me right to the story that I want to read. So I can, and when I'm looking at that, I can also choose, I'm going to move this over here. You can see this little magnifying glass up in the corner, so we can search for something. But the thing that I find most useful is this zoom button, which means you're going to zoom in. So if you're having a hard time with the reading and you want it to be bigger, that's easy. You can zoom in and you can zoom out.
A nice feature for some of us, including myself.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the benefits of ebooks in general, is that you can adjust the size of text, right? And you don't, and if it's a big book, I think all of us have had that experience where you've got that really heavy book and you're trying to read in bed and it's kind of heavy and awkward. An ebook is great for that. Okay. As I mentioned, you do have limits on how many ebooks or e-audiobooks that you can have out at one time. So if you had finished something, you'll see here in your account section, it has your loans, your holds, wish list, that's things you've thought about. So when you go to loans, I can see what I have out right now. And it tells me this is how many more titles I can borrow. But if I'm done with this and I don't want it anymore but I'm desperate to get another book, and of course I'm at my limit, I can return this book early. And it's simply by pressing that return button. And now, as you see, as magazines don't count to my limit is back up to 10 titles. Any questions about that?
Questions I have is that you mentioned that you could either download or browse. Now, I'm assuming that if you're going to go on holidays and you wouldn't have access to Wi-Fi, you would have to download so that you can actually read the book then.
Yep, you've got it exactly. So when you'd want to download it, it still won't be permanently on your device. But if you were going somewhere where you weren't going to have Wi-Fi, both for ebooks and for e-audiobooks, you would want to download it so that you could continue to use it the whole time without using any of your internet or your mobile data. Yeah.
Can you renew a book if you're not finished reading it in the 21 days?
So they don't allow you to renew, but if nobody else has it on hold, the easiest way is just to return it and take it right back out again. And you'll see in your account, you can actually look at your history. So, and don't want to do that. And so I can look at the books I've previously taken out. And if nobody else is on hold, this one's on hold, so I'd have to put a hold on it. But I could just retake it out. Okay, one thing I just wanted to point out, because I find that this is a bit confusing. You'll see right now you are in the magazine section still. And so if I search right now for Jane Austen, it's going to tell me there's no matches. So if something like that happens to you and you're at home and you think, what, we have no Jane Austen books, just take a look to see if you're still in the magazines, if you moved over to the magazines, and you'll see there's that little back to main collection. Click that. Now you're back to the main collection. Now, if you search Jane Austen, we're going to get all of the Jane Austen items. Okay, so I've seen people have that issue before, so just wanted to mention that to you guys. That's all I'm going to do with Library to Go. So I'm going to move on. I'm going to stop sharing here for a second. And I'm going to move on to one of the other resources. So we'll just go down here. We'll reshare our screen. Okay. So reading newspapers and magazines. So there's magazines, as I mentioned, on your Overdrive collection. But we also have a terrific province-wide resource for newspapers, and that is called Press Reader. And with Press Reader, you can access newspapers from all over the world, all free of charge. The most current newspapers. You can do it from home. And the way you would do it from home is that you go into a library and then you basically log in, and that gives you 30 days of access from your home. And then if you are at a library, of course, or if you go through a desk, and that's if you're using a mobile device. If you love to read it on your phone, you have to visit a library every sort of 30 days. That refreshes the hotspot. But if you're doing it on your desktop, like your regular computer, and you log in through the library's website, then you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so I'm going to show you Press Reader for a minute. And we won't spend quite as much time on Press Reader, but I do want to show it to you because I think it is helpful to actually see what does Press Reader look like when you're actually doing it. Okay, so I'm just going to mosey over to Press Reader. Okay, so you should be seeing Press Reader on my screen. Can you just give me a thumbs up, Doreen, if you can see it? Perfect. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to mention is that we do have the Globe and Mail on it, but it is the one item that does have some restrictions. So if you come in to a library, any library in the province, you can see the Globe and Mail online on Press Reader. Unfortunately, the Globe and Mail has decided that if you're using it from the comfort of your own home, they won't let you see the Globe and Mail. So that's a recent change, and it's something that we did get some questions about. And unfortunately, Globe and Mail makes their own decisions about who they want to provide access to. So just, it's one of the things that I know a lot of people were using Press Reader for, but there are still a ton of newspapers on it. So when you are looking at the different publications, so you come down, it's got both magazines and newspapers, but if you come down to newspapers, which is what I'm going to show you today, you'll see that there's newspapers from around the world. And it's really easy to decide what country you want. So right when you come to newspapers, you'll see this little tab that says all countries. If you click on it, a pop-up screen comes up that gives you the different countries that they have newspapers from. So then you can choose to say, let's say you're only interested in Canadian newspapers. Oh, but maybe you're also interested in the United Kingdoms. And I'm just going to click this done button. And so now I'm going to get the newspapers that are actually from those countries. And I can scroll through them, or I can also choose to say see all. And I can pick which newspaper I want. So let's say I want to read the Toronto Star. I'm just going to click read now. Okay, so the first thing it's going to show you is the page view. Now the page view is exactly like a regular newspaper, right? But then if you want to actually look at a particular article, if you click on it, you will see it is taking you to a text view, which is much easier to view than that newspaper view.
And it's larger as well.
It's quite a bit larger, yeah.
No, but can you make it larger?
Oh, can you make it larger? Yeah. So you can go to page view. And when you go to page view now, you can scroll in to make it bigger. Whoop, in. And that's about, I think, as large as you can get it. You'll also see down at the bottom of your screen, it's got the different sections of that newspaper. So that's another way to really quickly scroll. So you could go to weather and life. And there's weather. And I could click on something there. And I could get the weather to get bigger. I also, I'm going to just go back here. When I've chosen something, so if I wanted to look at, say, The Guardian, I can also choose to look at different dates. So when I have the magazine up, I can choose this little date thing right here. And then I can actually say, oh, I'm interested in a different date. And it'll give me the publication from that date. Once again, every publication controls how much of their back catalog they make available on this. But there is always some back catalog. So that's a great way to kind of look through it. And again, the other thing they do have is a ton of new magazines. So if you go to magazines, here, if you're a cooking person, I think Good Food is a great one for that. And it's going to operate very similar to the one that you saw in Overdrive, where you can kind of just scroll through it. But that if there is a weekend that you, or weekend, if there is a article that you want to read, I'm going to look at this one on the weekend, you can click and go straight to that article.
You download these ones or not? You have to be on Wi-Fi to see these.
These ones you have to be on Wi-Fi to see. Yeah.
Okay, so you can't download them, but as long as you, and from what I heard you say is Globe and Mail is the only one that if you wanted to read it, you'd actually have to physically go to a library to access that one.
That is correct. Yeah. Globe and Mail is the only one that recently changed their access so that you do have to go to a library to access it. So as long as you're, and you don't have to be using a library computer, as long as you logged in through the library's Wi-Fi. So if you walked into the library and you're sitting in a comfy chair and you've got it, you can use it like that. Okay. Stop share for that one. Okay, so that's Press Reader. And I think it's a really great resource just to use newspapers from around the world. And if you're somebody who likes reading about, I know, for example, in my family, for a long time, my grandmother liked to read in German and she liked to see the newspaper in German. So it's a great thing too, because those newspapers are from around the world. And it's something that we often find with especially our newcomer population, that it's an awesome way to feel like they're still connected with what is happening. Or even if you've moved across Canada and you'd really like to see your hometown, you know, Brampton news, that's a great way to get access to it. All right. So the next one I wanted to talk to you about is Hoopla. So as I mentioned before, Hoopla is not bought across the entire province, but it is such an amazing resource that pretty much every library system in Saskatchewan has chosen to purchase this and provide it to their library users. So right now, whether you are in Yorkton, Estevan, Prince Albert, Regina, Moose Jaw, Saskatoon, you can get access to it, okay? And the reason I really like to promote Hoopla is for two things. One, it has quite an interesting collection because it has both movies, TV shows, ebooks, e-audiobooks, graphic novels and comics, and music. So it's this really one-stop shop for such an enormous collection. But the other reason I like to tell people about it is that it is instantaneous access. So everything that we have in Hoopla, when you go into Hoopla, there is never putting something on hold. The way their purchasing model works is that when the library purchases it, we purchase unlimited access. Okay. And if you're familiar with the way ebooks work, that isn't always the case. So in Overdrive, the reason why you have to be put on hold is that we purchase a book, and usually it comes with a number of checkouts. So for example, 15, 21, 30 checkouts, but they are not simultaneous access. So one person gets it, then the next person gets it, then the next person. The model works much more like an old-fashioned actual physical item where we have to wait for someone to return it before you get it. In Hoopla, what we pay for is simultaneous access so that it doesn't matter how many people are using it, you can always get access. So you get 10 items a month with Hoopla. Usually your library will set it up their own way, each library, because as I mentioned, each library is paying for it. For Regina Public Library, it's 10 items. And when you've borrowed 10 items, then you do have to wait till the next month to borrow another 10 items. And that just has to do with the way the pricing is for that model, because of course, simultaneous access costs the library a lot more. But it's amazing for when there's those items that you know are in high demand. And it's a 3-day loan for movies and TV shows, 21 days for books, 7 days for music and CDs. And once again, those are automatic returns. Okay, so it's not something you have to actually physically return. So I'm going to show you now.
Tanya,
Yeah.
is that 10 items in conjunction with the 10 items that we can get for books, or is this an additional 10 items?
Okay, so there's the 10 items that you can have on Overdrive. Those are totally separate. And the 10 items on Overdrive is just about how many items you can have out at one time. So as soon as you return something in Overdrive, your number goes up, right? So if you had 5 items out and you return 5 items, then you'd be back to 10. Hoopla, you have 10 items a month, and it doesn't matter if you've returned them all, you don't get another 10 items. You get 10 items that you borrow through that database each month.
But I can get 10 items through the library and 10 items through Hoopla.
Absolutely. You can get 10 items through Overdrive and 10 items to Hoopla. The two of them, they don't communicate. Okay, so we will. Okay, I'm going to move this over. So we'll go from that to Hoopla. Okay. So you should be seeing my Hoopla screen. So the first thing I wanted to tell you about Hoopla is you do have to, when you go to Hoopla, the first time you go to Hoopla, you have to create your own account. Okay, so it'll ask for your library card and your PIN number to sign you in, but then it will ask you to create an account, and that's your personal account. And you to create that account like you'd create any account. It's usually tied to an email and a password that you're gonna put in, and that's the way you would log in each time. Okay, and so some of them, like Overdrive, the only thing you have to do is use your library card and PIN. Once you've used your library card and PIN, that's it. That's your account. Hoopla makes you do one extra step, which is create an account tied to your email. Okay, so just something to be aware of. All right, so one of the things I talked about was that it has that simultaneous access, and that is really fun when you want to read something that's popular. So for example, Bridgerton was, everyone was watching Bridgerton for the last little while on Netflix. The library has lots of copies of Julia Quinn's Bridgerton series. But if you are like most people, you discovered that all of the paper copies were out. If you went to Overdrive, there was a ton of holds on Bridgerton. But if you went to Hoopla, you could borrow it the day you saw it. So that's where I wanted to read the next one in the Bridgerton series, which is The Viscount That Loved Me. And so I borrowed it from Hoopla. When you look at Hoopla, if you go to this browse section, you can see the different categories they had. So what I mentioned again is it is a really big one-stop shop. If you're looking at comics, so if you were looking at the Dune graphic novel, let's just borrow it or borrow the title. And it's going to operate very similar to how we would have read a magazine. And the only difference, of course, is you've noticed right away that the image sometimes gets smaller and bigger. And it's because we're looking at a graphic novel and art is not always the same size. But you're going to see it the way the artist sort of designed it. Okay, so you're reading it as a graphic novel.
Can you make this larger or not?
That's a good question. Now you can zoom in with your mouse the way I'm doing right there. Let's find out if I can make this any bigger. I am not a graphic novel reader, so I haven't done it. Okay, so let's see. Settings. We have that. Action view, show the whole page. I can scroll between pages. I can have the zoom option there, but can I make the whole page bigger? Okay, so I can do it. So what I did is I'm going to exit out of this. Okay, I'm going to go back into that and play for a second. So if I clicked on it, what I did is I just clicked on one square with my mouse, and now you'll see I see that square much bigger. And now I'm in square by square view, which is bigger. And so that's the way you would zoom in. If you wanted to see only one thing, if you were looking at going just smaller, seeing it. And then if I click again, I came back out to the whole big page. And the other option it gives you is if you don't click on it, if you just sort of move your mouse over top of it, you could see the text bigger. If you wanted to have a sense of the whole image, but you wanted to see just the text bigger. But if I click on it, I go to that being big. And if I click back out, I go to it being a regular page. So that was a great question, because that was a learning thing for me too, because as I mentioned, I'm not generally a graphic novel reader. Okay. So I mentioned movies on this as well. And so they have a whole bunch of popular movies. Once you've been borrowing for a while, they'll have movies that they recommend to you. They usually have an August movie of the month, and new movies. I will say, if you are used to Netflix has a very curated collection, right? It's really easy to browse Netflix for, I want a romance, I want an action movie. I find that Hoopla isn't quite as well organized for sort of that kind of browsing. Like you end up having to spend more time just sort of scrolling through. Is a little bit more the way it's set up. Like they do have some family fun and things like that. But you'll notice right at the top here, I don't have something that says, hey, I just want to see a romance collection, or I just want to see their action. So just something to be aware of. It's a little bit more of a browsing collection. And it does play on your screen. So I'm going to look at one I've already taken out when I was looking at this yesterday. I'll move this up a little bit so I can go back to my Hoopla. So if I go to my currently borrowed, so this one I had borrowed yesterday. So you'll see it says how long I have it for. So it's a return in 1 day. If I press play, it's going to just show on my screen, full screen. Just show a second of it. I'm probably breaking a copyright law if I show any more than that, because we're going to put this on YouTube, but there it is. So the film is just going, and I had this up yesterday, so I was scrolling around to just play with it. So I'm right at the end, but of course there's this little button right at the bottom here. So I could move that button back to the beginning of the film.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it will automatically come back to where you finished. So that's why it came to the end of the film, is because yesterday when I was looking at it and scrolling around, I was at the end of the film. And if I X out of it, I'm right back to my home screen. Is there any questions about Hoopla? Okay, so we are coming to the end of our time today in terms of like sort of everything. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a quick sort of chat where I'm not going to take you through the item in depth the way I've been doing, but I just wanted to tell you some of the other things that are available at your library, so that you know to look for them, because sometimes I think we just don't know what is available. Okay, so one of the resources that is available across the province
Library thing.
is the Academic One File Select.
On stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Doreen, I'll just get you to mute everyone's mic for a second.
Oh, it's not about volunteering. Or anything.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
And it was just recent. And I didn't put
Please
a
mute
tag
your-
on it. Because
I'll just get everyone, if you're at home, to mute your mics for a second. Doreen, you should be able to just mute everyone's mic remotely.
Oh,
Perfect.
no, I don't think it's researching. It's trying to keep people busy and using library service.
Okay. Okay, so one of the things I did want to show you with the is just some of the other services that we have. So doing research, if you are somebody that is at home and wants to like do some research on it really doesn't matter what. There is a service that's called Academic One File. It is available across the province, and it's a great option to, do research on anything. So if you are interested in, say, organic food, you're going to get access to a whole bunch of scholarly articles about it. And as mentioned, it is across the province. Some of my absolute favorite ones right now are lynda.com and Gale Courses. Lynda.com and Gale Courses are both ways to learn and improve your skills. They're a little bit different. Lynda is all about online video tutorials. So they're taught by experts in the field, but they are a tutorial where you just watch it at your own pace, and you can have a ton of different topics. So for example, if you wanted to improve your computer skills, or you wanted to learn Photoshop or any of those things, you could watch a whole series of videos. Gale Courses runs a little bit differently. Gale Courses actually puts you in an online class with an instructor. It has a specified start date. You'll have, assignments and things that you have to do. But the great thing about that is you're actually working with an instructor. So if you have questions, if you have problems, you have someone to ask. You're still doing it on your own pace. So the class starts at a certain time, and then there's pre-recorded video sessions and assignments that you're following along with. And so those you do on your own time, but you do have access to that instructor. And the Gale courses, in terms of their subject area, are enormous. So if you want interior design, if you want creative writing, if you want a gardening class, if you want to learn Spanish, if you want to learn sign language, this is a place to go. It's amazing. I love Gale courses. The last one I'm going to talk about today is Creative Bug. Creative Bug is, Regina Public Library has it along with some of the other libraries in the province. And it is the site for crafty people or people who don't think they're crafty and want to be a little more crafty. So it has videos that are on everything from knitting, sewing, painting, embroidery. They come with all their templates. They're taught by industry experts to follow along. So I'll just show you what that looks like. So this is, for example, this is on their site, and you'll see right at the top, if you logged in, you would see all of the different types of craft ideas that you could do. I chose embroidery, and I get a list of all of the different embroidery classes that are on YouTube, and it tells me how long they are. You know, so some of them are really a quick class. If you're already an embroidery expert, maybe you just want to do this 16-minute class on how to do an heirloom style napkin, and it's 16 minutes and you'd be done. If you're somebody like me who's maybe new to embroidery and you want a more introductory class, well, maybe this embroidery challenge stitch a day sampler where they're going to go through all your basic stitches at 2 hours and 43 minutes would be a better option for me. When I pick one that I like, so for example, if I picked this one, it's going to give me a whole bunch of information about what's happening in this class and what we're going to be doing. And then I could click on the different things to find out chapters. So if she said we're going to learn 31 different stitches, so the chapters in this one would be all the different stitches. I can look and see the materials. I can have the discussion. And so it's a great one in terms of just really having fun and learning a new skill. The very last one I'm going to mention is Mango Languages. Mango Languages is also at a ton of different library systems throughout the province. And it is the one that we recommend to people who want to learn a language. We all know that learning a language is incredibly good for our brains. And Mango Language is a really fun online way to learn that learn a new language and practice a new language. And it's very much at the beginning level. If you are somebody that is fairly advanced, Mango Languages probably isn't the right one for you. But if you are just starting out in a language, then Mango Languages can really be helpful. Okay, so as I mentioned a little earlier, Doreen asked that really good question, where do I find these? So just reminding people that you should go to your local library website. And then you're going to look for, every library organizes things a little bit differently, but you're looking for things that like are digital collections, digital services, online resources, e-resources. We call them all a little bit different. If you're going to Regina, you're going to look under Explore. That's where we have all of our different collections. And I'm going to stop my screen share there. And if there are questions, I haven't left us a ton of time, but I think lots of people asked their questions along the way, which I appreciated. But if there are questions, I'm happy to answer some of them now.
I have a question. I do recall at one point in time that the library system gave us access to Ancestry. Is that still correct?
Yes. Okay. So Ancestry.com has traditionally been something that you had to use inside the library. So we provided access, but the database rules were that you had to use it inside the library because it was quite an expensive resource. But with the pandemic, Ancestry.com said you can use it at home, and they have actually just extended that again. So they've kind of been extending it in 4-month blocks at a time. And we just found out they extended it again. So you can continue using Ancestry.com at home. And if you've never used Ancestry.com, you can visit it's a genealogy resource, and you can visit your library to learn more about it. Or if you are a Regina resident, we offer classes on Ancestry.com all the time. And I believe we're doing another one later on this fall. Great question.
We have one question here about the library card. Why has our library card need to be redone? our library emailed me to say I have to reapply, but she didn't get an answer back when asked the question.
Okay,
So-
well, I can't speak for other libraries, but I can tell you the reason why we often do that. So our library cards are set up on a renewal basis. And so your library card doesn't stop working, but what we'll usually ask you to do is to renew. And when we're renewing, we're just double checking that we have the correct information for people. Because people move, people change their phone numbers, people change their email addresses, and often, we're one of 1,000 people you have to tell, and people forget. So when we ask people to renew, it's just so that we can double check that we have the most accurate information for them.
We
a
have,
question?
Myra has a question.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I really learned a lot. Now, I have a library card from the Lumsden Town Library. How do I access the Regina Library then? Okay,
so some resources are going to be you can access for the Lumsden. Let's find out where I'm going to go. I am actually going to go to Lumsden Public Library. I'm just going to see what your resources are right now. Lumsden Public Library, because I think you guys are part of Southeast Regional, but I'm not sure. Yes, you are. You're part of Southeast Regional Library. Okay, so Southeast Regional Library has some of the same resources that you can access, and you'd access them through your library website rather than through RPL's library website or through Southeast Regional's library website. So if you go to, I'm just going to show you what Southeast Regional's libraries looks like. I think it's probably easiest if I show you in person. That's always helpful. All right, I'm going to share my screen for a second. Okay, so this is Southeast Regional Library System, which Lumsden is a part of. And so the best way to access any e-resources is to actually go to your library site, because when you go to your library site and you log in, it's going to ask for your library card. Whereas if you went to Regina Public Library's website, it'd be asking for your Regina Public Library card, which you don't have. And you'll see here, it has a drop down for e-resources. And if I go to all e-resources and databases, it has a lot of the ones that we are talking about. So there is Overdrive and Libby. There is Creative Bug. There is Press Reader. And if I click on those, I go straight into that library to go. I'm already logged in, so it's going to take me to my login because Overdrive understands that. But you would come here and you would sign in. And I'll just sign out for a second. So I'll show you what it looks like when you sign in. Okay, so if you sign in, you see here that it says this welcome, please sign in. And when I drop down, I have a list of all of the libraries in the province. And something just important to remember is if you belong to a smaller library, like you belong to Lumsden, you're part of a larger library group. And it's the larger library group that's going to be listed here. So you belong to Southeast Regional Library System. So just like if you're in Moose Jaw, you won't see Moose Jaw here, but you will see Palliser Regional Library System because Moose Jaw belongs to Palliser. The only ones that are kind of big enough to have, Moose Jaw gets their own listing, but they're also part of Palliser, so you could go either one. But like most of them, you'll see this bigger cities might be listed, Lloydminster, Moose Jaw, Regina, but smaller cities like say Estevan aren't going to be listed. You would have to know Estevan is part of which public library system and then choose the public library regional system. Okay.
So Tanya, if somebody was confused about or didn't know for sure, they could just phone their local library.
They sure could.
Okay.
Phone your local library and just find out. Yeah.
Okay. You do have one quick question, and it'll be the last question. It's can you just give us a quick recap of the differences between Overdrive, Library to Go, and Libby?
Okay, absolutely. That's a totally good question. Okay, so Library to Go, I always say, is a made-up name. It's a made-up name because the whole province together decided, hey, we're all going to be part of this resource. We're going to share it. And we should have some name that's like when we talk about it, that it's our shared resource. And so we called it Library to Go. And it's just something we're using in the province. And I think it makes things a little confusing for people sometimes because we're so many e-resources now. But to be fair to the libraries, we have belonged to this one since 2007. And if anyone remembers back in 2007, there were not that many online resources back then. So it wasn't so confusing. Overdrive is the company name. And the website, if you're using it on your computer, is called Overdrive. And I find that when I'm looking for items, I like using the full website view. Libby is the name of their app. So when I am on my phone and I want to look at something, I'll actually show you my phone. You can see maybe that I've got the Libby app. There's my little girl with the book. And Libby is how I use Overdrive on my phone. It's really a very slick experience on your phone because, of course, phones are tiny screens. So I don't want to have that big, giant website on my tiny screen. Libby is really great for that. And I will give you a heads up that sometimes I hear some noise from the company that Libby is really popular and that they might change up the website in the future so that it looks more like Libby. But so far, they haven't done that. So Libby is your like mobile device to access that collection. Overdrive is your website browser, like on your desktop to access that collection.
Great, Tanya. Before when we started, I mentioned maybe if you could put a cheat sheet together of some
Absolutely.
of these points. And if anybody is interested, they could email us at C.A.R.P, sk@carp.ca, and we could pass that on.
Absolutely. So
okay.
We are out of time. Thank you so much for letting me join with you today. I hope that you guys are felt like you got some knowledge out of that and are as excited about library resources as I am all the time. and like I said, yeah, I will get that cheat sheet. And if you have questions about any of your library resources, I really do encourage you to call your local library. The librarians are always kind of ready and eager to answer questions.
Really
and where is this recording stored? You said you were recording this. Where is it stored?
We're still having some difficulty getting some of the recorders on YouTube, and we'll notify everybody when these recordings get to YouTube. But it is really incredible what resources are available to us and through the library. And I want to thank you, Tanya, for taking the time to come on to Coffee with C.A.R.P to show our viewers, members, how to access these resources. If you have ideas on topics that you'd like to find interesting to know more about, we obviously welcome a chance to chat over coffee and just forward those ideas to sk@carp.ca. Attention, Coffee with C.A.R.P. And if you're interested in knowing more about C.A.R.P, you can use the same address to contact us. Please feel free to let others know about this programming. And our next session actually will not be in the second week in September, but actually will be the 4th Tuesday. We're skipping one session next month. It's going to be September 28th at 10 a.m. and the topic is fall prevention. We will be having a guest joining us from C.A.R.P Ottawa, who has worked in the field for 30 years and is currently heading up a workshop on fall prevention. So this is, I think, going to be a very exciting session. I'm going to leave you with a quote from the author and producer, Sidney Sheldon. Libraries store the energy that fuels the imagination. They open up windows to the world and inspire us to explore and achieve and contribute to improving our quality of life. So till we meet again on Coffee with C.A.R.P, you keep smiling and stay safe. And Coffee with C.A.R.P is sponsored by Zoomer Wireless. And for information on new phone, tablet, or cell services, please check them out at zoomerwireless.ca. Goodbye, everybody. And again, thank you very much, Tanya, for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
You can stop recording.
She was really